My name is Rolf Rosenkranz and I'm the editor with Devex. I'm here at the European Development Days in Brussels, and with me is Erik Solheim, the former Norwegian aid minister and current OECD-DAC chair. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Rolf. Thank you.
So, Erik, tell us a little bit about what your priorities are right now with the OECD-DAC. That, of course, is a body housed in Paris, and you have a lot of members from the industrialized state, usually, but now it is opening up a little bit. So what can you tell us about the direction of the DAC?
The overriding issue in the world today in development is for sure to eradicate absolute poverty by 2030. We are a body which will discuss what are the means, the right policies to do it, and how can we mobilize the resources to once and for all eradicate poverty. Then we must reach out. We cannot do it just by the industrialized nation. We must reach out to China, to Brazil, to India, and to the huge number of new nations who both are providers of assistance and recipients at the same time, like Turkey or Mexico or Chile or many.
And this debate was begun in Busan a couple of years ago, where a lot of emerging economies and emerging donors spoke up, and there were questions raised about whether the DAC was even needed as a way to unify the aid community around certain principles. These emerging donors said they might have a different way of going about international cooperation. So give us an update about how that integration, if it is happening, is really working out so far.
Historically, of course, development assistance was North America, Europe, Japan, assisting poor people out in the rest of the world. That's long back in the past, I mean, for sure that's continuing, but it's a very new world. The rise of the South is the most important development in the world in the last decades, and it has brought hundreds of millions, billions out of poverty. So what we need now is a conversation with all the providers of assistance. What are the right policies? How can we do it? How can we mobilize more resources? Still, aid from the developed nations to developed nations is by far the most important financial flow, but more and more South-South providers are coming up. So we want to provide DAC as one avenue for this conversation, but it cannot be just within the DAC, it will also be with these new providers. We have a rapidly increasing relationship with China. The global partnership, which will meet in Mexico City in April, is another venue for this much broader debate.
Emerging donors that are going their own path with development, are they really warming up? To what degree do you think can you really integrate them into the OECD-DAC framework?
I don't think at this stage they will be integrated into the OECD. OECD is the organization of all the developed nations with a number of rapidly developing nations like say Turkey or Mexico and Chile. We are reaching out to have a very strong partnership with China and with others. We have more and more common conversations with them. We're also trying to bring new members into the DAC. So you have this double process of reaching out to others while enlarging our own club. What will be the forum in the future for these conversations? No one can tell. But what's for sure needed is a global forum where all the main providers of assistance can come together to set standards and to discuss what are best practices.
Is there a change in the definition, you think, of official development assistance? I think a lot of people are talking about it and are thinking about redefining it. Countries like China, for instance, are not necessarily reporting. They don't even consider certain funding flows as official development assistance. So are you working on a redefinition of that term?
Yes, we have set on track a process which will end within the OECD in 2014 in December, where we will look into whether we should modernize the concept of development assistance, but maybe we should also establish a new concept, a much wider concept, including commercial loans, grants, private investment, which could encapsulate the entire financial flows for development. Official development assistance is the most precious resource because that can be directed very straightly to the poor, but we need also to look into these much wider flows. Private investment, for instance, is much bigger than development assistance.
So then you're going to be taking into account the private sector flows as well, which are of course much more than the official governmental aid flows?
That will be the aim of this process, to look into how we can showcase, and provide better for private investment? Can you also use official development assistance in a better way to leverage private investment? For instance, President Obama did launch the Power Africa initiative on his last trip to Africa. That's a mixture of private investment, of official development aid, and many different flows in between, where the state is a guarantor for private investment. And I think that's the way forward, because official development assistance is important, but it can never be enough to eradicate poverty, nor can it be enough to put the globe on a sustainable path when it comes to climate or biodiversity. We need the much bigger flows of private sector, but we should look into how they can be directed in the right way.
How can you avoid then that the OECD-DAC, which is doing some things really well, which is collecting data from its member states, is essentially collecting a lot more, but nothing really comprehensively in the future?
Well, transparency is an absolute key. And luckily enough, also the Chinese are much more transparent. They have launched a development strategy, and they are providing data in a way they did not do in the past. And from the OECD side, we are strongly encouraging and doing our utmost to also enforce much bigger transparency within companies in the OECD nations. We cannot continue with a world where a huge part of the money in the world is going through tax havens.
What is your vision for the OECD-DAC then? What do you want to achieve in the time that you have left as chairman of the DAC?
A very, very strong focus on the world out there, not on ourselves, because the more you discuss yourself, the less influential you are in the world. We should focus on how can we assist people out at the water holes in Africa, or in people living in slums, and what way can they benefit. One very obvious is that we are probably the prime institution in the world on expertise on tax matters. Most African nations today have huge mineral resources, oil, gas, diamonds. They can set the taxes right for that, avoid super profits, get money from their super rich and from the middle class. They can provide enormous input into education, health, infrastructure, what poor nations need. And we can provide the expertise needed for this process.
You've been the Norwegian Minister for Development until last year. And overseen a couple of substantial reforms. How do you look back now at your time as the minister, and what happened since you left?
What I'm proud to say the biggest success in my time as minister was to encourage the establishment of the UN RED. This is the program for conservation of the rainforest of the world, which has taken off, and I think is at the moment the most successful environmental program anywhere in the world. Brazil has reduced its deforestation rate with 80% in 10 years. If anyone had gone to Brazil 10 years back and told President Lula, you can do this, he would have said, no, it's impossible. They have done it with international support.
And how do you see the Norwegian aid community develop as donors, including Norway, want them to go local, want to hire locals, want to partner with local organizations?
The most important demand from developing nations these days are for the use of country systems. That is to use the state apparatus of a developing country, not establish something on the sidelines. Because at the end of the day, nations with strong states and vibrant markets are those rapidly pushing forward, and you need to assist developing nations in establishing that states, and you do that by using their country system.